I honestly don't know any other goal in parenting than our children not struggling, not suffering in the way that we did. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about your parents literally put food on the table. That was their generation. And because they were so out of their own need for survival, that's the only thing they could think about. Many of them, it was even against their own body's conditioning, their own body's programming, their own survival to even entertain anything else. So when we think about feeling and emotion, it's no wonder that so many of them are just, shut it down right away. Because it's literally against their survival. It was against their survival to think about any of that stuff. All they could think about was making sure that we got fed. And so because we got fed, we got to focus on their severe lack of connection to their inner experience, their feelings, thoughts, emotions, and of course their behavior, right? Complete disconnect. And so our generation, if you're listening to this, you already know you've been on this journey so far of trying to make sure that not only do you have food on the table, right? But your goal now is trying to make sure that your child doesn't suffer mentally, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, the way that you did as a child. The entire way that you were alone as a child. And I want you to just imagine this, right? Imagine that you got the mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological, the whole inner connection that you needed as a child. Imagine that you got that from your parents all your life. Who would you be? Who would you have been sooner in your life? Or if you're watching this and you're still like, I'm still not there, who would you be if you had that connection? Now I want you to imagine that, right? That vision, that end goal that you just thought of. Our goal is to do that for our child. Our goal is that our child will never have to worry about food on the table, and will also never have to worry about their emotions. They will be free of the physical needs and also the mental. And so our generation, many of us, this has really been the journey of our life. It's been understanding who we are, understanding emotions, understanding behavior. Because for so many of us, there was such a disconnection in our parents. And maybe that contrast, right, from our parents, if you're listening to this right now and you're like, my parent walked miles to school barefoot, didn't have money for food, right? Much less school or anything else. But then came to this country and lived the American dream and managed to be really wealthy, but still emotionally unhealthy. And so then it became our generation's duty, right? Not by choice, but that's the next step of the hierarchy of needs, where food, water, and shelter, right? Then emotion, then feeling, then thought. So by default, because we were fed, we were now looking at our parents, trying to understand why they were behaving said way. Not by choice, but because it seemed so obvious that there was a disconnect. And so this understanding of ourself has really become our generation's responsibility, task, and focus. And then now I want you to go back to what you envisioned about your child or about yourself. If you had this emotional connection, this mental understanding, right, from your parents, who would you be? Who would you be? And I know this is a painful thing to think about, right? Maybe just as much, as it was painful for our parents when they were hungry, when they were starving, right? And they grew up in poverty and they didn't get help from they didn't get physical help from their parents. Our goal is to make sure that our children do not have to worry about physical needs and do not have to worry about mental and emotional needs. That our generation takes care of both so that our children can reach and live their potential sooner than you and me, sooner than your and my generation. And just on an individual level, just listening to these words and just feeling in your own heart how difficult it was for you not to get your parents' love, approval, support, connection, understanding. To go without the most fundamental aspects that really contribute and compose our human experience internally, right? The richness of life, the richness of connection, the richness of our inner landscape. And so many of us have been on a healing journey for many years now. But if you're listening to this, I know you know that the cycle really ends here. That I had to do this work on myself, and that I'm doing this work on myself so that my child will not have to go through what I did with my parent. And again, our parents did their part. They did the best that they could. Many of them were just focused on putting food on the table. And because they did that, we then had the luxury, or just the next step, the curiosity to be like, what's going on here? Like, what's really going on with my mom? What's really going on with my dad? Because this isn't adding up. This isn't matching up. Like, their behavior is not adding up. And if you've been through this, if you've been in this scenario as a child or growing up, or even now, currently, you see how much energy this takes up. This takes from your focus on what could be your attention on other things, what could be spending your time and energy on things that really meet your potential, right? Things that you're passionate about, your service in the world, how you would like or how you are great at helping people. When we are missing something fundamentally from our relationships, namely the first relationships that we have in our life, this is yet another way that the brain goes into survival mode, because we are wired for connection. And so, of course, right, if we are hungry, that's of course going to trigger our survival mode. But then also emotionally and mentally, there's significant research conducted that shows in the first 5 years, the most significant amount of development occurs in the human brain. So from a child, from birth to 5 years, or even from 0 to the first 7 years. And that during this time, how well or how poorly. There's tremendous development in the social and emotional areas of the brain. But what's even more profound is that how well or how poorly development in the social and emotional domains occurs determines how well or how poorly development in all other domains and areas in the brain occurs. So it really goes to show you, if something is missing socially and emotionally in a child, then that actually affects the development of the rest of their brain, of the entire brain itself. And so our work really as human beings that are not as much wondering where our next meal will come from is visiting and revisiting the experience that we are having internally. What are we thinking about? How are we feeling? What experiences are we having in the body right now, in the mind, every moment? And it's really being in tune with our inner experience that is a necessity for reaching and living our potential as human beings. Nobody makes it to their potential without understanding and being in touch with the inner landscape. And the more you are in touch with your inner landscape, the more fully you live your potential. And that really is the goal for our children. It's for them to hit their potential as soon as possible. Why? Because they benefit, they thrive, they're their happiest self, they're their happiest, healthiest, most joyous, most richly intellectual self. And it's also what the world needs. The world needs our service. The world needs your and my service. The world needs the service of every single human being. But the sooner our children live their potential, that just means the sooner they're suffering less and less from not living their potential. And usually when we're not living our potential, it's because there's some sort of suffering that's happening either on a physical level, right, which thankfully many of our parents have taken care of, or on a mental level, which our generation is currently taking care of. You have to do this work on yourself. If you're watching this video, you already have been. You've been on this journey for maybe decades. And really the goal is to come to a certain threshold where you've done the bulk of this work, where you can say, I've broken the cycle. I've broken the cycle of the severe, intense trauma that was passed on to me, unknowingly, of course. I've broken the cycle, and I have made sure that my child will never suffer in the way that I did. And that alone is enough. Just that alone. If you think about the way that you felt alone, the way that you struggled as a child, the moments that you didn't receive the understanding that you needed, right? When all of the moments that you weren't seen, and maybe till this day you aren't seen by your parent, right? And again, there comes a point where you realize, oh, okay, this work really is mine. It's my work to do, because I can't rely on my parent for that. And maybe our parents felt the same way when it came to food, right? I can't rely on, and them saying, right, I can't rely on my mom or dad, for money for school or money for food. And maybe they were alone physically. And maybe they were alone physically just as much as you and I have been alone emotionally. And I want you to know, this ends here. And I want you to say it with me and really know it in your being. All of this All of this survival mode, it ends here. It ends here. My child is never going to have to think about food, money, or emotional well-being. Their whole survival, their entire survival is taken care of. And I think we deserve that. Not only do they deserve that, because every child deserves that, but we deserve that in our life, to come to terms with the end of this thing and to be free of it so that we don't pass it down. I've earned my mental and emotional freedom, and I want you to as well. And so if you're listening to this and you're thinking about the ways in which you were alone as a child, think about what you needed and how you plan to be that for your child. What you needed and how you're going to be that for your child, how you can be that for your child. And it's such an important question to reflect on, because just the reflection alone, just asking yourself this question alone, will make you conscious and aware of something that maybe you weren't before. And often when it's a way that we significantly struggled, it is, if not top of mind, somewhere up there, right? Somewhere on our list of, like, we're somewhat aware of it. But even if you didn't experience like intense aloneness, right? But it still happened in your childhood. If you want your child to live their potential, you must fully embody the mental and the emotional connection that they need. Because the less alone that they feel in their experience, the sooner they can live their potential. And this is our goal for our children. This is our goal for all of us, parents included, teachers, and anybody, any adult. You want to be free of your mental and emotional baggage so you can focus or just do other things. So you could just be free of that once and for all. And so the question really is, how do I do this work? How do I do the work that will give me more peace, that will give me more joy, that will allow me to focus, to put my attention on my passions and interests and my service to the world? How will I do that? And how can I do that? The first answer to that will always just be in just this process of just reflection, just asking the question. And I think pretty up there is just the understanding that my parents were doing the best that they can. I recognize that. And now I take it a level higher. Everybody really is operating at the highest level of their consciousness. And similarly, if your grandparents didn't have $5, they couldn't give your parents $5. And the same thing is true for mental and emotional needs. If your parents didn't hug you, didn't say I love you, didn't even see you or say hello, how are you, didn't even look at you, it's also because they couldn't. And I know some of you are thinking right now, there's no way that's true. And you're thinking that because it's a lot harder, it's a lot less clear to see than if my parent didn't have money and they didn't, and so that's why they didn't give me money. But the same exact rule, the same exact law applies to behavior. whatever you see, the manifestation of behavior is exactly what that person is, exactly where that person is exactly what they're capable of, is exactly what they have to give, as in what they have to give is how they operate within themselves. So they can't give anything that they don't have for themselves. And so if your parent doesn't have any sort of connection or relationship with themselves, guess what? They're not going to be able to give you connection and relationship. If they're not thinking about their behavior or reflecting on their emotions or how they feel, and then understanding how that corresponds to their behavior, maybe, of course, they're not going to be able to take you through any of that process. They're not going to be, that's not going to be a part of their relationship or interaction, at least with you at all. And so it's the same law that applies. If my parent cannot give me something, it's because fundamentally they don't have it to give. They don't have it to give. And I know this is difficult to hear because something in you doesn't want to hear it. Something in you fights it. Something in you says, nah, I don't think they're doing their best. And that's really the part of you that you have to come to terms with, because it's that part of you that's wounded. It's the wounded part of you that refuses to believe it. But this is exactly how human beings become conditioned. Like, our behavior is a conditioning. It is learned. And many of our parents were just in survival mode for one reason or another, where they shunned their inner experience completely. They shunned it. Literally cannot even, many of them, some of them cannot even entertain what they are thinking about, how they are feeling. They just can't even go there. And when you really experience healing within yourself, as in coming out of your conditioning, as in unlearning a lot of the things that you have learned and accumulated throughout your life, you actually sit with the conditioning of your own body and mind. And you realize how much of it is actually uncontrollable. It's literally the programming of your body, right? Your brain has there's a thought, or your brain has a thought, and you can watch the thought arise. The nervous system starts to become dysregulated with this thought, and you're just kind of watching it all play, right? You're just kind of here. And so if that's your own programming, if that's how your own body is operating, if you can't control when your palms get sweaty, or when your heart rate starts to increase, and you have physical symptoms when you're about to have a difficult conversation, or when you're about to express yourself, or you're about to record a video of you singing, or whatever it is, right? Any kind of vulnerable moment for you. You see that this is really how the body has been set up so far. That vulnerability is sort of like it's a warning signal, like the alarm signal in the body just goes off, like ooh, 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 like something's not right here, not supposed to be this way, not because you were forced to shut that part of you down. That part of you wasn't accepted, it wasn't okay in some way or another as a child. And so, very understandably, right, this is just how the body works now, right? When you try to be vulnerable, when you try to feel or express yourself, even now, right? And forget your parents that like were completely disconnected, but even for you and I, right? There are times where we try to go there, we try to be vulnerable, and our body just doesn't like it, right? Our mind just fiercely tries to protect us and tells us don't do it, and then starts dysregulating our nervous system, and then, you know, we're just here for the ride. And so the question is, right, how do I come out of this entire programming? And the reason that we brought up this is because our parents have this fully. Their body works this way fully. To the fact that, I mean, and we're way better, right? Because we can actually practice vulnerability, but many of our parents are completely just cut off. And so just to understand the analogy, right? If this is how my body is responding, then my parent, who's literally been in survival mode their whole life, right, is just that much further from where I am when it comes to vulnerability, right? They're just way, way further. And so if they don't hug me or see me or look at me, make eye contact, say I love you, it's because they don't have it to give. It's because their body and their mind has been programmed in a very different way, right? In a way where they don't have those things. And they can't go there safely. And even for us, right, we've had to work on feeling safe to be vulnerable. But many of our parents still haven't approached maybe any form of safety. And so the question really is, right, how do I end, or how do I really come to a point where I'm okay? Where I'm clear enough, where I've come out of most of the conditioning of my body to then be like, okay, my eyes have been cleared enough where I won't pass this down to my child as much, at least, right? We want to be, the goal really is to be fully clear of our own stuff, right? Our own traumas, conditioning, things that we learn that don't serve us. The goal is to be fully clear. Then how do we, and when do we know, okay, I am fully clear? I think once you start on this journey of just looking, right, examining, especially the thoughts that come up, and of course the feelings, emotions, just sensations in the body, just being present with every experience, I think is life-changing. And I think that will always be part of this journey, right? Even if there's anything that's added on to any moment, right? A deeper looking or a questioning or a revisiting of a childhood memory or experience, the fundamental, like the core element that runs through this entire process is just presence. Being present with every single thought, feeling, sensation, emotion, every experience in the body. Because it's sort of this presence that our parents were completely like trained to be out of, because they literally just had to focus on feeding us. And so you can't be present when you're in survival mode. It won't allow you to, right? Like the brain just adopts a certain kind of tunnel vision, right? So it's very one track. It's only seeing the thing that it needs to survive. Therefore, it's not present and open to this moment. So the two things cannot exist together, presence and survival mode. Although presence underlies survival mode, but it's covered up by this tunnel vision. And we can go more into that later, but that's, we could leave it right there for now. So because there's just this tunnel vision, right? And many of us have been coming out of this tunnel vision, which was just the conditioning of surviving in our own way, right? Many of us had to survive our parents' lack of connection. And so we've been coming out of this tunnel vision to be more and more present. And the way to make this transition really is just by being present, right? The more present you are, the more space grows in presence, right? So the more your conscious presence grows, right? And it makes sense, right? So the more and more I'm present, the more and more presence grows here, the more spaciousness grows in my being, and I can actually be open and receptive to what's going on around me. And open and receptive to my own inner experience. And so this is the sort of the piece that we keep with us all the time, right? Just be present. Be present as much as possible with every experience that you are having. And the more and more you do that, the more and more you're going to be able to then be present for the experience